Hello, Forest Creek families. I am Denise Sharp, proud principal. Welcome to the 2020-2021 school year. This meeting is usually held in our cafeteria to give you information about procedures for the upcoming year. Since we cannot do it this year, today my team and I are going to share information for the starting of our virtual first 3 weeks. Let me introduce you to my amazing leadership team. Amy Schultz, assistant principal.
Hey everybody, good to virtually see you.
Michelle Vogel, instructional technology specialist.
Hello.
Liliana McSween, counselor.
Hi everybody.
And Ella Elliott, librarian.
Hi Odie.
While Michelle is pulling up our presentation for tonight, I want to take this time to acknowledge all of the teachers for their dedication, hard work, and creativity. I can't tell you how proud I am of this group for the work that they've done, not only in the spring, but throughout the summer and in preparing for this coming school year. Next slide, please. Like I said, this is typically a presentation done in our cafeteria, but this year we are going to be doing virtually. The purpose of this meeting is to provide you with information that you are going to need for the first 3 virtual weeks of school. Next slide, please. We are currently working on some procedures for when your students enter the building. We are planning on developing some strong Forest Creek specific procedures to welcome your students back into our school when the time comes. I have to tell you that we are not there yet. Many factors are going to go into the development of these procedures. For example, it will depend on the level of restriction we face at the time. We are working toward more safe interactions when they are allowed. And when we are close to the time of return for in-person schooling, we will share these carefully developed procedures with all of you. So stay tuned for additional communication. Next slide, please. I know that there has been some confusion around the difference between virtual versus in-person learning. So I'm going to take an opportunity to share some information about each of these. But also I would encourage you to go back and watch the virtual town hall recording. That will have lots more information than what I will be sharing tonight. So for the first 3 weeks, everyone will be virtual. Every student will have 1 hour of whole class live teaching. That's when the class will tune in, the whole class will be on the call, and they will be having in-person virtual live teaching with their class and their teacher. In addition to that 1 hour, there will be a second hour of live small group instruction. There will be some asynchronous times. Now, asynchronous means that the students will still be learning, but they will be tuning in on their own time and doing some of their work. The teachers will provide videos that students can watch and assignments, and students can do that work. The district has shared a suggested schedule. You may adjust the asynchronous times to meet your family's needs, but the tuning in for the whole class live session and the small group live session that's assigned to your student need to be at the times that are assigned. Attendance will be taken and there will be grading involved. When it's time for in-person learning, we will have live teaching. It's not going to be the same as just virtual teaching in the classroom. So students will come, there will be a teacher, and the teacher will be teaching from the front of the room live. Students will stay with their class community. In other words, they're not going to be interacting with the others in their grade level. They'll be working with their classroom community. This is to keep them all safe. We will have social distancing, and students will not be sharing supplies, and there will be safety procedures that are implemented. The amount of interaction will depend on the level of restriction required at the time. So for example, we're looking at how we can do recess and lunch, recess, lunch, and specials. Students will have all of these, but the level of restriction at the time will determine if they will stay in their classroom for lunch or go to our cafeteria. If they will be able to have specials in the specials classroom, or if they will have specials in their classroom. And we are working on providing time for every class to be outside. Again, in the safest manner possible. I would like to note that you may change your choice from virtual to in-class or vice versa. We are asking that you try to make those changes at the 9-week mark grading period time, but if circumstances change, please contact me and we'll work with you. I do want to let you know that your children may have a different teacher once we go to in-person or virtual after the first 3 weeks than the homeroom teacher they started with during the first 3 weeks. What do I mean by that? All of the students are assigned to a homeroom teacher for the first 3 weeks. But then once we go to the option for in-person or virtual, some teachers will be teaching in person and some will be teaching virtual. No one is going to be teaching both. So if your student has selected in person, but their homeroom teacher is a virtual teacher, they would be assigned to a different teacher in the grade level who is teaching in person. The same will happen if you have chosen virtual. Your child's homeroom teacher for the first 3 weeks may be an in-person teacher, so they would be assigned to a virtual teacher. To help make sure that there's a seamless transition, our teachers are working closely as a grade level team so that all of the students will have exposure to all of the teachers. They will be sharing, making the videos that your children will watch during the asynchronous time so that they get to know everyone. Both in-person and virtual will continue using the technology platforms that Michelle is going to discuss later. But the reason for that is so that there's a seamless transition if a child goes from virtual to in-person or back or the opposite direction, or if at any time the district needs to go to all virtual for a short amount of time. We want to make sure that no child is penalized. So if they're in person, they're still going to have instruction on those platforms that they can then transition to being virtual. Again, I mentioned the grade level team system is going to be incredibly important this year at the start of the year. Next slide, please. At this time, I'm going to hand it over to Mrs. Schultz, who will be talking to you about some safety.
All right, guys, we just want to remind you, the district has said this a lot, but our #1 priority is everyone's safety. And so right now we're really thinking about the coronavirus and how that impacts us, not only the students, but the teachers as well. So these are some of the mitigating measures that we are putting in place to keep everybody safe. First and foremost, masks. Make sure that your student comes to school with a mask, should you choose in-person learning. Here displayed on the screen are several nice mask options. We want to make sure that the kids keep their masks on their body at all times. So the scarf would be great, or you can see the picture there of the little clip behind the hair so they could pull it down around their neck. A tie mask would work as well. Just simply untie it and drop it down, but make sure they know how to tie it right back up. And then the teachers will also have face shields that they'll be utilizing as a protection device. We are going to be sanitizing like crazy. Lots and lots of hand washing. The district has provided hand sanitizer stations in each classroom that we will be utilizing, as well as intensive cleaning like Mrs. Sharp talked about. We are not going to be sharing supplies. We will be wiping down all surfaces lots of times throughout the day just to make sure things stay cleaned and sanitized. And then of course there's going to be social distancing. In the classroom, we are going to make sure that kiddos are separated and spaced out as much as possible. In the hallway, we are going to minimize transitions as much as possible. So in-person learning might look like eating lunch in the classroom instead of transitioning to the cafeteria. In the hallway, we are going to have decals provided by the district that will help students to know how to socially distance when we do need to transition from one place to the other. Next slide, please. Our second priority and greatest joy is learning. So one big question that you might have right now is, when will my kid go to online school? Meaning, what time will you log on? On August 17th, your teacher will send you an email outlining the times for your specific student when they will log in for whole class learning and also small group learning beginning August 20th. So remember, check your email on the 17th so you can find out those schedule details and be ready to start school virtually on August 20th.
And now we're going to talk about virtual learning. Let's start with the student devices. Student devices will be distributed August 17th from 9 to 11 a.m. and from 3 to 5 p.m. for parents who have indicated they needed a device on the Parent Choice Survey that was sent out from the district. Students who were issued a device in the spring and are returning to Forest Creek Elementary may keep their device for the upcoming school year. The students the parents that requested a student device using the Parent Choice Survey, that's what I'm going to use to assign a student a device ahead of time. So that survey was really important. And parents were able to indicate whether they needed a device or if they didn't. And those parents that recorded that they needed a device or a hotspot, that's what I'm going to look at for August 17th, because I have to pre-assign the device and I have to get that device ready ahead of time. I also have to make copies of an agreement and get the power cords. And I need to have that all ready to go so that when you drive up, I will be able to hand you a device with a power cord ready to go. So if you're unsure if you requested a device, you can contact me at michellevogel@roundrockisd.org. So what if you show up to collect a device, but you did not indicate that you needed a device on that choice form? Because the power cords and the assigning of the devices will occur ahead of time, unexpected orders cannot be fulfilled on August 17th. But if a student and a parent does arrive, I can collect your information and then I can get a device ready for you at a later time. If you're interested, what kind of device would you want to purchase for your child? I can't tell you what device to purchase, but I am allowed to let you know that the Chromebooks that we are going to be handing out are going to be Dell Chromebooks 3100 2-in-1, and they do have a touch screen. We will be using 3 new learning platforms this year. So new to this school year will be Schoology, which is our learning platform. In the springtime, we used Google Classroom, but that is a light learning platform. Schoology is more robust. It'll allow teachers to hold discussions, create content, do assessments and grading all in this one learning platform. It's a great system. Dreambox is our online math program, and some of you might have dabbled in that in the springtime, but this will be part of our blended learning approach. So all the students will have access to Dreambox, and iStation will be our online reading program. Teachers and students will continue to use the Google apps like Drive, Docs, Sheets, and Slides. Schoology will take the place of Google Classroom. So you might be asking how your child will access all of these different apps, and that is a great question. Luckily, the district has signed up for something called ClassLink, which is a single sign-on service. This means that just like in the springtime when your child logged onto their Chromebook or they logged onto a laptop, they were logging on to Google. And I'm using my son's account right now, but up at the top, you know, he has his, we call it the S number. So he enters in his S number and his, at student.roundrockisd.org. And then he enters in a password. And once he's into Google, then up at the left, he will see a folder that's Round Rock ISD. And he will be able to click on that folder and then enter in his username and password just one more time. And after that, he will have access to all the learning apps and platforms that he will need access to. The student passwords and login information have not changed from last year. So if you still have that information, that's great. You can use it again this year, but you will also get your student's username and login information from your child's teacher. So Dreambox and iStation, the math and the reading programs that we're using, they have a special technology where they use adaptive learning technology, and it reacts on how the student answers a question. So the advice to give is not to jump in and help your student out when they're stuck. actually to let them just answer the question as best they can, because based on how they answer that question is how the software is going to react. You know, they'll either continue down that learning path or they'll provide, tutorial information. So you definitely want to resist that urge to jump in and help to answer questions. Some things that you can do would be to encourage your child to try every question, to persist even when it's hard, encourage your child to give their best to every question. You know, you want to watch for just clicking through to get to the end of the lesson, because again, Dreambox and iStation are using that information, and the teachers are using that information to guide the students' learning. Encourage your child to use the help or hint buttons. They are really more robust than what we're used to. So there's little icons and avatars that can help the child or give the child a hint. And teaching your child to use those helpful buttons, it empowers them to solve the issues on their own. And that way you don't become the tech person in your household. And encourage your child to do their own work. You know, if they have an older brother or sister that leans over and they want to kind of help out, remind them that, this is their learning. And Dreambox recommends, and as well as iStation, to access this on a daily basis, at least 5 lessons per week for all grade levels. The more that you use Dreambox and iStation, the greater advantage your child's going to have. And then one thing I wanted to hit upon is the training for the parents. The kids will get trained by their teachers. So when they log on and they see their teacher, she or he is going to guide them through what to do for Schoolology, where to click for Schoolology. And the same thing for Dreambox and iStation. It's very, very kid-friendly. Once the child logs in, they're immediately greeted with audio and a visual to help them along their path. But there are parent guides and there are help centers in all 3 of these platforms, and they're really good. So I just did a search for Schoolology parent guide. I immediately got the parent guide from Schoolology, and it's they show little videos and interaction so that if you click here, they even have it animated, the parent guide. So there is support out there for parents, but just know that we are going to teach the kids to be independent so that they're independent learners. And with that, I will give it to Ella.
My worst fear is I wasn't going to unmute, and I did that. So thank you very much, Ms. Vogel. You might be asking, how is my child going to check out books in the library when we're doing virtual learning? And we have some great ways. So literacy during this time is very important. We also know that summer slide happens and they can lose up to 2 months of their reading abilities. So we've been out of school for a little bit longer. We need to make sure that we are reading a large amount. Next slide, please. So on our Forest Creek website, we have a library link at the very top, and it will take you to a page that looks like this. There's 2 ways that your child can access books during virtual learning and also during in-person learning. Macambia is the first one. It is our ebook platform. You can log in with your student's S number, but unfortunately, this just wants the number, so don't put the S in there for both the username and the password. So you can check out audiobooks and ebooks. We've done a lot of work getting some really good ebooks in there for your students, so please check it out. The catalog is another tool that your child can log on to look to see if we have any books and to put books on hold. So when your child puts a book on hold, I run a report and I'll be gathering those books together, and coming very soon, next slide, Michelle. We are going to have a drive up and pick up your books. So putting the books on hold through the catalog, I will let you know what date you can come and drive up and get those books, and you'll go be able to just open up your trunk and I'll put them in for you. Next slide. Here are just some basic information that I'd like for you to know. Your child will be able to check out 10 books technically. 5 books they'll be able to have with them at that time. And then since they could have taken 5 out, 5 will have to come back. So up to 10 books. And they'll also be able to have 5 books on hold. It is important that they get the books back to me because we want to make sure that everybody has some of the popular titles that they all want. Now, the reason why there can be 5 books that are brought back is because we're going to have a 4-day quarantine for the books, just to make sure that we kill the coronavirus and that both your children and the library staff is safe. Please resist the urge when you get books from us to sanitize them with any type of chemicals. We will be wearing gloves when we pick out the books and put them together for you. If you happen to have any books that are still at your house from last year, there are never late fees at Forest Creek or any other Round Rock ISD schools. But if you have one, pretty soon there'll be a receptacle out front for you to return those books. And if you have a lost or damaged book, please let me know and we can work out a payment system. If your child maybe doesn't love to read or has finished their favorite book series and they would like another one, I would be happy to do a quick FaceTime, Google Meets, or we can talk over email and we can figure out a series that they might be interested in. Just give me an email at ella_elliott@roundrockisd.org. Thank you. Next, Liliana. That's next week.
Thank you so much. Along with all the important things we've discussed already, it's really important that our students feel safe and connected during the school year. As you know, because of the effects of the pandemic and the need for social justice in our communities, we all have experienced an unusual amount of stress. As you can imagine, this also affects our children. As students return to school, we know the changes may be very difficult for them, and we want them to feel safe and connected so they will reach their greatest potential. This summer, teachers and staff attended professional development on racial equity, which our campus and district will continue to focus on. Our goal is for every single student to feel important and that they belong to a learning environment that genuinely cares and believes in them. Next slide, please. On our campus, we address mental health needs in a preventative as well as responsive way. This is accomplished through daily social emotional lessons with teachers and monthly guidance lessons with me. A very important goal this year is to teach our students and staff the importance of practicing mindfulness. And I'd like to take a minute to explain the benefits of mindfulness. Next slide, please. One may think of traumatic experiences as only physical, but mental trauma from ongoing fear and stress greatly affect our brain in a way that causes us to behave differently. I know many of you may be familiar with the effects of trauma, but here is a quick explanation. As you can see in this diagram, when we compare a typical brain development with developmental trauma, a brain that is affected by trauma will not function properly. It will function significantly from a state of the survival part of our brain. And this happens when the amygdala is overactive, causing a heightened fear response and increased anxiety. This in turn negatively affects the ability to regulate our emotions and behaviors. Next slide, please. So how can mindfulness help us? Well, it's been said that anxiety comes from dwelling on the future. Depression comes from dwelling on the past. So being in the present moment is what mindfulness accomplishes. It helps us regulate our emotions so that we can think clearly. So some ways that mindfulness can help us is it provides more oxygen to the brain, repeated timed breaths tell your brain that you are safe. It allows emotions to be understood and let go with repeated practice. And it brings awareness to emotions and assists us to be present in the moment. So the practice of mindfulness will help students regulate their emotions so that they can learn. Next slide, please. I named this slide Grace because it is my hope that we will all find ways to offer grace to one another in this season. You know, none of us have been here before, and I believe it's very important that we take time to seek to understand each other from a place of empathy. From my perspective, I can attest to the amazing compassion and dedication of our principals, teachers, and staff who are willing to go above and beyond to provide our students with the very best. Additionally, Round Rock ISD Counseling Services has provided an enormous amount of resources for caregivers and made them available on their website. I have also attached a link to those resources on my website for your convenience. I want to wish you a safe and healthy school year, and please know that I'm here for you and I will support you in any way I can. Thank you, and I'll give it back to Mrs. Sharp.
So as you can see, I have an amazing team. Not only these ladies who presented with me, but the entire staff. I have shared with them many times that once we started our COVID experience at the time of spring break, I have been overly impressed with what I call this team. Everyone has jumped into action. They've gone above and beyond to take care of each other, to take care of the kids, to do what needs to be done. The amount of creativity, innovation, and dedication I've observed is second to none. I am just so proud of the Forest Creek School that I lead, everyone in it, and I'm telling you that we all cannot wait to have your students back with us again. We cannot wait to see you, and we cannot wait to see our students. We miss them more than I can even express. Our commitment is to create an environment that is top-notch, whether it is virtual or in person. We honor your choices. We respect you as parents and what you choose that's best for your family. We are here to work with you and make sure that your experience in the 2020-2021 school year is outstanding. Thank you for choosing Round Rock ISD. Thank you for tuning into this Forest Creek presentation. I hope it gave you some information to answer some of the questions you might be having. Have a great evening. Thank you.